Kia ora, I'm Wendy Barry. I'm a Senior Partnerships Advisor at Porirua City Council. Together with a range of organisations from our community, we've put together this expression of interest to the Peter McKenzie project. After quite a couple of meetings, we felt that we weren't getting to the big picture ideas that the project is looking for. So we asked Matt Walton from Massey University to come and help us use a rich picture approach to help us better understand the system of poverty in Porirua. The first thing we did was created these rich pictures. So this rich picture basically say this is reflecting our understanding of what poverty looks like in Porirua. So there were no right or wrongs with the pictures. The drawings themselves were done in small groups, and they were a way for us to talk about our experiences, talk about our understanding, our perceptions, what we see, what we know, what we feel. And we did these in small groups, and they helped us understand the connections between all the different parts of the system of poverty in Porirua. So from there, we were asked to write on post-it notes one word that describes, using what we talked about in the rich pictures, what poverty in Porirua is about. So we used post-it notes to write all the different things. Again, there was no right or wrong answer, and later on we grouped them. So what is said in these post-it notes is a reflection of everything that we talked about in our rich pictures. So using those notes, we then grouped together all of these causes, all of these aspects of poverty in Porirua into two groups. So the first group looks at the causes. And this is about poverty, excuse my left-handed smudges. So one group is about limited choices and limited job opportunities. Another group of causes talked about the impacts of old or missing infrastructure. So this includes things like a library, Wi-Fi, and another big one that came up was housing. Another cause is around limited education. So this includes schooling and training. Another cause of poverty that came from this group was social services not working. Well, really it's about them not having an impact or not achieving what they want to do. And then the final cause was around not having enough to survive. And not having the means to have what you need to survive. So the other group was around the impacts. So these look at things like negative feelings and attitudes. There was lots of talk about hopelessness, loss of hope. Another impact was the limited connections. So feelings of isolation, and this might be around an individual, a family, or a group, or a particular sector. We talked about intergenerational impacts of poverty. And how for some families, there's no way of breaking these cycles. And another group was another group of impacts were the multiple impacts on families and people. And these come from the pressures of being in poverty, so that might be addiction or violence, those types of problems. So because systems are all about connections, and none of these things happens in isolation, and there's a lot of cause and effect and interconnectivity in relationships, we looked at the connections that exist between the causes and the impacts. So, say for example, for people who have limited choices and job opportunities, this can create negative feelings and impacts. It can create limited connections. It can accentuate the intergenerational problems, and it can lead to impacts on people. The impacts of old infrastructure or something that's not there, such as Wi-Fi, that loops back onto creating limited jobs and opportunities. For example, if you can't get to the library that has free Wi-Fi, you can't apply for jobs online. And the same impact can be on education. Might be connected more to not being able to do your homework after school because there's no Wi-Fi, or you can't get to a library where there's good books or a quiet place to study. These can link to... So the next group is around limited education. So this causes or leads to the following impacts of negative feelings and attitudes. Limited connections. Accentuates the intergenerational impacts, and in turn can lead to that. Social services not working or not achieving their goals can cause negative feelings and attitudes. That sense of hopelessness that we talked about. Limited connections. Now, the interesting thing about social services not working is that it can go back on itself. What does this loop back? So, can lead to that, people not having enough to survive. It can link up to here, and it can also means that these causes then come into these impacts out here. If you don't have enough to survive, the following things can happen. So we needed to look at where to from here and better understand these causes and look for causes that might be more impactful than others. So we looked at the causes that go back out into other causes. So say for example the impacts of old or missing infrastructure that goes back out into another cause, which then leads to these impacts. We also looked at limited education. What we didn't say before is that limited education also goes out to this cause, limited choices and opportunities, and potentially not having enough to survive. So that means that limited education is again one of these causes that creates other causes. And the other group that also does that is the social service sector. When it's not working, it causes problems by not having enough to survive and creating limited job choices, but it also has its own impacts. So the question for us now in terms of our Peter McKenzie project is looking at, if these are our three core causes that we want to understand or maybe influence or change, what does that change look like? So in terms of the impacts of old or missing infrastructure, we would want to see new infrastructure that is functional. So again, the group felt that in particular, this was around Wi-Fi in homes, it was around housing, being warm, being affordable, being stable, and other amenities, so public amenities such as libraries, study hubs, those kinds of things. So, new and functional infrastructure. And then looking at our second core cause of poverty is around education. We want that to be successful. And that's not up to us to determine, it's up for the community to determine what successful education means, but we know that it has a key role to play in reducing poverty. So the third core cause of poverty that if we wanted to flip it and see change, it would be that the social service sector meeting needs and making a difference. There's lots of discussion around what that might look like, how those needs are determined, and how we know that we're making a difference. Right. So the question for us now is, which of these three core causes of poverty in Porirua do we want to potentially influence as part of the Peter McKenzie project?